How's everybody doing today? It's your boy, Mr. E, Boss of the Southside Bosses, coming to y'all here on Revolutionary Hour, the podcast where we like to bring y'all the best underground everything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just don't. There's nothing else to say about that. We like to bring y'all information that you wouldn't get in that mainstream. That mainstream, man, it feeds you all of these lies. I'm trying to get the camera to stop shaking. I'm so close to this table leg. I'm gonna have to rearrange some stuff later on, but we ain't worried about that right now. Man, look at here. It's getting crazy. So we're gonna be talking about something that y'all need to hear, because I know y'all been hearing all weekend about how President Joe Biden has stepped aside in the race. He's even been asked to step down from the presidency, but that's neither here nor there. We ain't here to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is the news that he endorsed Kamala Harris, which I didn't understand why they didn't do that from the jump. Seeing how Biden was 80-something years old and that he was at risk, you know what I'm saying, to get through the debates and to the election process, let alone another 4 years. So why didn't they just go ahead and groom Kamala from the jump? Say, hey, in 2020, look, Biden, you got in office, you became a president. Now we're going to go ahead and get you to groom Kamala. We're going to get her ready for the 2024 elections. I just never understood why they didn't do that. But hey, whatever they got planned, that's what they got planned. But now we see it coming to fruition, right? We see it coming to fruition. We're seeing it right now to the point where people are actually seeing that Joe Biden was not fit to run for president in 2024. I know that they're thinking, oh, it's just COVID, he's going to get over it. Yeah, I remember when it was just COVID and we said you were just going to get over it. Y'all was trying to fucking take our heads off. You know, the unjabbed over here. But that, needless to say, COVID is still obviously something that's the government considers to be very intriguing, very prominent, very something that you need to be worried about. So they decided to go ahead and let him to make him step down from being the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. And they went ahead and threw Kamala in there. But I know this seems like a win, but I want to discuss how this pretty much isn't the win y'all think it really is. So first, let me go ahead and cover my ass with the
BOSS Radio, Southside Bosses, its owners and associates take no responsibility for the opinions or statements made by the talk show host or their guests. Statements or show topics are not necessarily the beliefs of the site or the radio station, and opinions between talk show hosts may conflict. This site does not endorse anything as the truth. That you will have to judge for yourself. But we try to speak the truth on the owner's behalf and reserve the right to question the supposed truth. In this time of misinformation, government-controlled media, and government corruption, it is sometimes hard to get to the truth, but we must try. It is not our intention to libel, discriminate, make hate, or annoy anyone. We believe that it is our constitutional First Amendment right of free speech to voice our opinions and our duty to the Constitution and country to expose the truth. This site takes no responsibility for the opinions of others and the postings of comments in chat rooms or forum posts.
So now that we done got that out of the way, we can go ahead and jump in and I can talk freely. Can I talk freely to my people? I'm going to talk freely to my people. Now, this is for everybody, but I don't want to hone in on the black man, black woman of the United States. We got to talk, because I know y'all remember in 2019, 2 years after Kamala Harris won her Senate seat, she ran for president. She put in a bid, run for president. Wanted to hear it. It was a black woman, even though she wasn't a black woman, and even though she wrote that had so much anti-black laws or policies that she helped to push onto the people in California, with the massive incarceration of black men simply over marijuana. She didn't advocate for social justice reform, but she didn't have a problem locking them up at all. So I just wonder, how does she get our anything? How does she get our endorsement in anything? I just want to know what was it that you felt? Was it simply because of Donald Trump? Is it still simply because of Donald Trump? Because remember, we had 4 years knowing that Donald Trump was going to run for president again. We knew he was going to run for president again. And yet we did nothing about it. We did nothing about it. We didn't get ready for it. You pushed this old man to continue, you feel me, doing what he was doing, and it really didn't do much for you. You say he did, and I read his website. None of that stuff actually is being seen in the black community. So, and I know this because the black community is still complaining about these things. And you got every right to. If it's not working for you, you got every right to, but you don't have a right to complain without doing something about it. So again, we're going to be trying to bring something to y'all that hopefully y'all can understand the gravity of what's about to happen. I'm not telling you not to vote for Kamala Harris. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not here to give you any advice on who to vote for. But what I am asking you to do is at least know what you're getting into in the next 4 years. That way you're not upset about the next 4 years, and you're working forward in fixing it for 2028, because something's going to have to be done in 2028, since these still seems to be the front runners. It's the blue and the red. It's still the front runners. And we know that they flap in unison so that this bird can fly. If they don't flap in unison, this bird don't fly. And this bird is still flying. How do we know this bird is still flying? Because of the simple fact that there is still bases all over the world. There is still ways that this United States government is putting pressure on Asiatic countries. Our countries, our people, still putting that thumb down. I mean, look at what they did with Afghanistan. Look what they did with Libya. Look what they did with all of these countries. Look what Niger had to fight against. The United States and France had their foot on Niger. Look what's going on in Palestine. We know these things. Oh, like I'm being restricted on TikTok. Live visibility restricted. Your live is not eligible for recommendation and restricted in search results because your live does not comply with the For You feed. Didn't put it in a For You feed. Eligibility standards under our community guidelines. Reason: discussing drugs or other regulated substances. Did I even say anything about drugs? That's TikTok for you. Remember, the government, they're trying to take over TikTok. I'm over here talking about them, and they say I'm talking about drugs. Let that sink in. Maybe I am talking about drugs, because y'all, for some reason, seem to be addicted to it. Blue and the red. The blue pill and the red pill. You don't see any other way out. But anyways, let's get back to what I was talking about. So we know over this weekend, like I said, y'all heard the endorsement. Biden has picked Kamala Harris to take over. He's endorsing Kamala Harris. Let's check that out. Give me a second. Let me pull that on up. Should have had this. There we go. And share. Boop, boop.
He likely was thinking about what would happen if we got to this point where he had finally decided, Joe Biden decided that he needed to step aside and step out of this race. And now he is throwing his full weight and support behind Kamala Harris. It sends a huge message, especially to this party, about where we are going now, especially with such little time left in this race.
Now, so we see right here that Biden is obviously he's endorsing. There we go. He's endorsing Kamala Harris. He wants Kamala Harris to take his spot as the Democratic nominee. Now, she hasn't been officially made the Democratic nominee. That will be happening either today or this week. I forgot. I know they're doing some live Zoom call or whatever where they will do a presenter. What's good, Lincoln Prophet? How y'all doing? Hey, man, first let's stop right here. I need y'all to send y'all prayers to Jamaica. They still reeling from that hurricane. Lincoln Prophet, one of our great reggae artists that we connect with down there. That y'all need to go check out his interview with us. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know it's still up on sbcmovement.com. But y'all also put prayers in down there, man. Y'all look in on Jamaica, man, for real, man, because they still reeling from that hurricane. And we want to make sure that they are, they're good. Some people, thankfully, not many people got hurt or lost their lives, but still, their homes are destroyed and things of that nature. So keep them in their hearts, keep them in their prayers. And big up to your Lincoln Prophet. Much blessings, man. Much blessings. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So you see that Biden has endorsed Kamala. So now we know that Biden has endorsed Kamala. But the thing about that is, do y'all remember when Kamala in 2019 was running for president? Again, we brought up her record on locking up black men and stuff for minor offenses and make sure that they went to prison. She pushed for prison time. She didn't push for drug rehabilitation or anything like that. She pushed for prison time. And we know why. I mean, she was working for the government. The government needs you to go to prison in order for the government to be able to sustain their prison system. So that's what she did. But anyways, do y'all remember Representative Tulsi Gabbard, excuse me. If y'all do, y'all know how she handed Kamala her ass on the presidential debate, the Democratic presidential debate in 2019. So give me a second. I want y'all to watch this because, and then I still need y'all to go and check out the whole debate. I can only play a little bit of it because, for time's sake, but y'all check this out.
Well, first of all, we have a criminal living in the White House, and there is no question.
Bear with me one moment. I'm streaming, so it's kind of. Come on. This would happen. It played perfectly fine before I started broadcasting, but apparently,
that's in 2020, the biggest issue before us until we get to that tender moment is justice is on the ballot. And what we saw today is Ambassador Sondland, by his own words, told us that everyone was in the loop. That means it is a criminal enterprise engaged in by the president, from what we heard today, the vice president, the secretary of state, and the chief of staff. And so this not only points to the corrupt nature of this administration and the need for these impeachment proceedings to go forward, but it also points to another issue. And back to the question that you asked earlier, which is, what does this mean for the American people? Because what it means when I watch this is that there are clearly two different set of rules for two different groups of people in America. The powerful people who with their arrogance think they can get away with this, and then everybody else. Because here's the thing. For those working people who are working 2 and 3 jobs, if they don't pay that credit card by the end of the month, they get a penalty. For the people who don't pay their rent, they get evicted. For the people who shoplift, they go to jail. We need the same set of rules for everybody. And part of the reason I'm running for president is to say that we have to bring justice back to America for all people, and not just for some. Oh, sure. I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for president of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November is someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together. I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman
Nah,
I'll give you
really
a chance
quick.
last.
Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief, to lead our armed forces, and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put party interests first. I will put the interests of the American people
Congresswoman. I want to briefly give Senator Harris a
Yeah, as we see from there, you heard Harris speak. She spoke about all of these things and all these people who she never helped out in the first place, never campaigned for in the first place. Matter of fact, if you look back at her 2012 campaign, you will see how she campaigned to be tough on crimes. And when she got in as Attorney General for California, she was tough on policies, not crimes. There was no victims, nor were there any damage to property, which is the two aspects you need in order for a crime to actually be a crime. But instead, she prosecuted people who should have got help. She wasn't talking about reform then. Wasn't. Still isn't. If you actually look at what she's been doing, she's been cozying up to the black community with her hot sauce in hand. And the policies that has been pushed forth, again, is not being felt by the black community. Now, I've been watching the news, and y'all talk about that she needs to be pushed for because she's a black woman. But y'all didn't have that same aspirations for other people who was actually doing something for the black community. Bernie Sanders and so on and so forth. We got Carl Lewis, God bless his soul. You had your girl, I know her name. I'm tripping. I know her name. The woman that got fucking Biden in the presidency anyways, who turned all of Georgia blue. You know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. She's a state representative. She was running for governor of Georgia. You know who I'm talking about. Biden didn't endorse her. Kamala didn't endorse her. None of the Democratic Party endorsed her. Instead, they let the Republican governor win the seat again. When they had just turned it blue for the presidential debate, for the presidential race. So that goes to show you that if they could have turned it blue for the presidential race, they could have turned it blue for the governorship of the state. Wouldn't you think so? Wouldn't you think that the people who put Biden into the presidency will want to put a governor into the presidency that will work hand in hand with the blue president that they just put in? No. Because when it came to this lady, I'm going to get her name. When it comes to this lady, it wasn't about blue. It wasn't about red. It was about black. Governor race of Georgia. I'm going to get, I know her name. Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams. I was going to say Amber, and I'm glad I did. Stacey Abrams. Nobody said anything. Matter of fact, I made a podcast about that. I remember that. And I remember some of y'all responses then too. She wasn't ready. She not ready. Kamala ain't ready. Kamala ain't ready. She's being a lapdog for the white man. Y'all know this. So even if you do put her in there, what she's going to do is she's going to continue. God damn it, man. Somebody's finna come in and knock on the fucking door. But she's going to continue the policies of the Bush Clinton regime. Bush, Clinton, Bush, Obama. Look what happened to Libya. Now look what's happening to Libya. Yeah. So with that being said, this same is going to continue just like Representative Gubber said. Now, check this out. Gabbard still holds that same position. Yeah. Don't believe me? Check this out. She is still at the point where she still holds the same position she did 4 years ago, which is crazy because if you look at how the Democratic nominations were and the Republican nominations were, they continue to they don't continue to bash the person that he was bashing. Once they found out, oh, Joe Biden was the presidential candidate, all the Democratic candidates got behind Joe Biden and started talking nice about him after they just said all of this bullshit about him. They just tore this man's reputation up. And then they want to come back and try to fix it and push it. Oh, he's the best choice for the nation. And this, but you just said you was the best choice for the nation. What happened with that? It was either you or it was them. So now that you see that you wasn't the best choice for the nation, you're going to get behind the person that everybody else is getting behind. That's fickle. But yet, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, watch this. Y'all just watch this. Because it's apparent on who stands by their convictions and who don't. Probably going to show a commercial.
Forum on Peace, Security, and Prosperity for the Western Hemisphere in Europe. I just saw the news flash like everybody else. President Biden's no longer running for re-election, and he's endorsed Kamala Harris to be the Democratic nominee for president and commander-in-chief. I'm going to sound the same warning now that I have been for years, going all the way back to 2020 when both Kamala and I were running for president on the Democratic ticket. She is unfit and unqualified to be our president and commander-in-chief and would be incredibly dangerous in that position. The prospect of Kamala Harris making decisions about war and peace and where to send my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way is not only terrifying to us, it should be terrifying to every American, knowing that we would all pay the price for her dangerous actions and dangerous decisions. Everything you've heard me say about Hillary Clinton, the queen of warmongers, can also be said of Kamala Harris. There should be no question in your mind that if Kamala is allowed to be our president and commander-in-chief, she'll be the maidservant of this queen of warmongers, the head of this elitist cabal of warmongers that has gotten us into this place. They're the ones who've been calling the shots behind Joe Biden's presidency. They would continue to call the shots if Kamala Harris is president. And where have they led us? To the brink of war with multiple countries in all parts of the world, and closer to the brink of nuclear war and Armageddon now than ever before.
Now, you can't sit here and say that it isn't true. Because if you've been paying attention to world news, you know that because of what's happening in Palestine right now, the rest of the Middle East that y'all call the Middle East, they're up in arms. Iran, Iraq, Pakistan. All of them, they're up in arms right now. They're ready to war. Hezbollah has been bombing northern parts of Israel since the beginning of this war with Palestine. It's going down. And as you can see, this is up under Joe Biden's regime. Now, I'm not saying up under Trump's regime it wouldn't happen. I personally think it would. I think it would have, because like I said, two wings of the bird got to flap in unison in order for that bird to fly. So I do believe that it would have happened. It may have not happened. It may not have happened the way it's happening now, but it would have happened regardless. The same thing would have happened regardless. So that goes to show you that these people are on the same page. They are on the same page. It's like it's flawless. It's flawlessly working forward, and it's nothing changing. You can't sit here and say something is changing. If you sit here and something is changing, then you're young, or you ain't really paying attention, or you really are on board with what's really going on. It's either one way or the other. I don't understand what the issue is with that. How can you sit here and say that something is changing? Now, I'm not here to endorse Trump, even though if you watch the rest of that video with Tulsi Gabbard, she is endorsing Trump because, again, it's a blue and red party and we got to pick one. Do you really? Do you really have to pick one? Because I'm here to show you that wing of the birds that flap together, we don't have to be on that bird. There's other options. I've been screaming this forever. I told y'all to vote for the Green Party in 2020 because y'all didn't like the candidates. Y'all didn't hear me. Y'all, if nobody hears me, that's cool though. That's cool. I know I'm just doing this just because I love doing this. I'm not going to stop. Even if y'all don't pay attention. Even if y'all don't listen to this podcast. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to do. I just love doing this. But with that being said, I'm still going to tell y'all that y'all are doing things in a way that seems hypocritical. You say you want to see some kind of justice, some kind of change. You didn't get it with Obama. The LGBTQ, I'm sorry, y'all got it. And hey, props to y'all doing what y'all had to do to make sure that y'all made the president give y'all rights. But black people, what the fuck? When are we going to sit here and say that this United States government is not for us and that Martin Luther King said that he integrated his people into a burning house? Why are we still in this motherfucker with our hair on fire? We saw what happened to fucking Richard Pryor. That motherfucker ran down the street with his hair on fire. But y'all weren't paying attention. You laughed. You was laughing. You weren't paying attention to the fact the man was on crack because of the culture of this United States. Remember, your boy Reagan, he the one that fucked us up with that shit. And then Biden came 94 crime bill. Fucked us up. Y'all don't pay attention. You're not seeing what you're supposed to be seeing. And so you fall victim to it every time. Well, let me tell you what. There's somebody out there that looks just like you and just like me. And he has credentials that is insurpassable. Why haven't we not talked about this man yet? I have no idea. I've been talking about him. 19 Keys has him on his channel. Just did an interview with him. I'm going to check that interview out today because, I am definitely for Cornel West. So give me a moment. I want to introduce y'all to somebody who can actually, because you probably don't know about him or you probably heard about him, but you just push him out your head because, he was black. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Steve Clements, and I have a question. Is there any room in U.S. politics for a candidate who's running against both the Republican and the Democratic parties and wants to stand up for the working class? Let's get to the bottom line. It's hard to imagine a presidential candidate in the United States who's not impressed with any of the major political parties, who wants to stand up for racial equality and the working class, and wants to sort of unplug the military-industrial complex. But that's exactly what my guest today is doing. He is Dr. Cornel West, one of America's most prominent scholars and activists, the author of more than a dozen books, who's taught at some of the top universities in the United States, including Yale, Princeton, and Harvard. And he's a professor of philosophy at Union Theological Seminary in New York. Dr. West, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show again. And let me just...
Yes, Dr. Cornel West. Oh. But anyway, Dr. Cornel West, he was born on June 2nd, 1953, and he's a prominent philosopher, political activist, social critic, author, and public intellectual. There you go. They cut it off for me. See, they be trying to hate on me. Why they be trying to hate on me, I don't get, but it's all right. But anyway, I'm going to start over. Cornel West was born June 2nd, 1953, and is a prominent philosopher, political activist, social critic, author, and public intellectual, a leading figure in American thought. He has a bachelor's from Harvard University and a PhD from Princeton University. West has taught at prestigious institutions including Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Union Theological Seminary, where he currently serves as the professor of philosophy and Christian practice. Known for his scholarly work on race, class, and justice, his notable books including Race Matters and Democracy Matters, West is also a frequent commentator on political and social issues, making appearances on various media platforms. His activism spans decades, addressing issues like racial equality, economic justice, and peace through his academic, literary, and public engagements. West has made substantial contributions to contemporary discussions on democracy, human rights, and the intersections of race and politics. So again, how have you not heard about him if you haven't heard about him yet? Again, this man has not only got his PhD from an Ivy League school, he's taught at 3 Ivy League schools. And there he is, the professor. He's the head of a Christian school, a Christian theology school. I mean, what more do you want? What more could you actually want? You feel me? I just don't get it. This man is actually putting credentials forward that can actually be utilized in your life. Do we not understand that? So why are we still sitting here 4 or 5 months before the fucking election trying to figure out which blue or red pill to take? So with that being said, we got to start thinking about what we're doing, because all we're doing is fucking beating the same dead horse, running the same fucking water. We're doing it the same thing over and over, expecting different results. We are so hypocritical. We are so insane that I just can't understand it. Now, I just want y'all to take a moment and just listen real quick, because get to know him on his words. Let him show you who he is.
Just start out. You have launched a bid to seek the nomination as the Green Party candidate for President of the United States running in 2024. I'm going to start out. People are worried about the impact you have. I want to know why you're running. What do you want to bring to this race and to the national conversation?
Well, I appreciate you having me, my dear brother. But no, I've tried to be true to my calling, which is the quest for truth. The condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, and the quest for justice. And justice is what love looks like in public. And so the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, Edward Said, and Dorothy Day, and Fannie Lou Hamer, all of these are wind at my back as I spill over into the electoral political system. You see, the American empire is in very deep internal decay and external decline. And for me, I want to put the focus on those Frantz Fanon called the wretched of the earth, the precious poor people, precious working people here and abroad, no matter what color, no matter what gender, no matter what sexual orientation, no matter what religious identity. So it's a question of raising my voice and showing the ways in which big money and corporate wealth has completely dominated both parties, and neither party can speak to the plight and the predicament of poor and working people here and abroad. The militarism abroad on the one hand, and the internal grotesque wealth inequality within the American empire.
You know, when President Biden ran against Donald Trump and won the presidency, Black Americans delivered that win for him. It's just absolutely clear that Black Americans who basically lag in wealth, they are victims of mass incarceration in American society. You have lots of problems that have been, anchoring, the story of Black Americans, but they delivered Joe Biden to the presidency. Do you believe they should be satisfied with Joe Biden's performance?
Oh, not at all. I mean, one, the poverty has increased. He did cut child poverty in half during the pandemic, but the law expired and the child poverty went right back up again. So it showed there's no deep commitment to trying to reduce child poverty. I'm calling for the abolition of poverty. I'm calling for living wages. I'm calling for strong defense of trade union movements. I'm calling for decarbonizing the air And most importantly, I'm calling for what Biden has very much fought for. He fights for the expansion of the military budget and the expansion of militaristic policies abroad. I'm calling for the demilitarizing of U.S. foreign policy, demilitarizing of U.S. imperial policy. So we have a major clash, and I've got to convince not just Black Americans, I've got to convince my fellow Americans across the board that militarizing abroad is leading toward possible nuclear exchange. Militarizing abroad is taking away valuable resources that should be invested in healthcare, in decent housing, quality education, and in increasing the quality of the relations in the countries. The violence, the polarization, the gangsterization of American culture is a very sad thing to witness, my brother, and that has much to do with the lack of serious leadership in the White House, be it the Republican Party tied toward neo-fascism, exemplified by Trump, or Biden tied by very much mediocre milquetoast neoliberalism, exemplified by Biden.
You know, Dr. West, I think I've read all of your speeches in the last few years, and I was frankly kind of surprised to see your willingness to run for the nomination of the Green Party and to run for president, because it's kind of a comment that you're playing by the rules of the system, that you're going to run for office within the boundaries of how electoral politics is done. You're running against the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But I always thought you as someone who's basically saying this system is rigged, and it's rigged against the people you're trying to represent. I'd love to understand that tension, because it's an interesting comment that of all people running in this way, you're running in the system, sort of against the system.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point, though. And in all honesty, I surprised myself. In all honesty, I surprised my magnificent wife, Anahita Madavi West. Why? Because I've always viewed myself as part of a prophetic tradition that brings critique to bear on unjust status quos and tries to empower poor and working people wherever they are. But what has happened in the last couple of years is that we haven't had voices on the inside that have in any way tried to speak to poor and working people. So I decided to do what? Become head of the American empire in order to dismantle the American empire and empower poor and working people around the world. And my candidacy, my brother, is just a moment in a larger global movement, increasing voices from around the world, every corner of the globe, calling for policies that would accent their dignity. And so in that sense, it's quite continuous with my own prophetic sensibility. It's just that you're right. Now I'm going inside in order to dismantle, to ensure that those resources available there can be made much more available to poor and working people.
How do you feel your message is being heard? You know, I remember, 20 years ago, I worked closely and professionally with Dr. Chalmers Johnson. Chalmers wrote the book called Blowback: The Costs and Consequences of American Empire. It became the toughest to get book after the Iraq war, our invasion of Iraq occurred. And he made similar arguments. And he was a powerful white scholar from UC Berkeley who had moved to UC San Diego, commenting that the tensions about American militarism and American military engagement were going to chew up the fabric of society internally. And I'm interested in your own observations about that and how you get from where we are today to the kind of world where you think there's going to be much more justice and equity. Because it seems to me, if you're right, it's going to be a horribly messy process.
Well, one, it's already messy in terms of the deaths. It could be on the West Bank, where you've got so many precious Palestinians being crushed by barbaric Israeli defense forces. And yet at the same time, you've got peasants in Brazil. At the same time, you've got workers in Uganda. At the same time, you've got Dalits in India or Muslims in China who are not being treated right. And it's just a matter of trying to not hate anybody, but to hate injustice. Chalmers Johnson was a great truth teller. He was cutting radically against the grain. He was cutting radically against those scholars who were coming up with rationalization of American imperial power. So he became a prophetic figure, very much like C. Wright Mills or W.B. Du Bois or Toni Morrison, trying to tell the truth. But it's already messy. It's already ugly. It's already violent. The question is, how do we come to terms with that messiness, that violence in such a way that we can accent the best in each and every one of us?
I listened recently to an interview you did with the Black Agenda Report, which I found very, very interesting and illuminating. And one of the other surprises for me in that was your enthusiasm, frankly, for wanting to go into Trump country and your thought that there will be a lot of Trumpists that are now kind of engaged with President Trump who may find your message very compelling. Tell us more.
Well, one out of 10 of the supporters of Donald Trump actually supported my very dear brother, Bernie Sanders. You know, I supported Bernie Sanders twice, 2016, 2020, and he had the same critique of Wall Street that I had. He didn't have the same critique of the Pentagon that I have, but he's very progressive. And it means then that those who support Trump, you know, they're not stereotypes. They're human beings who are deeply wounded, deeply pushed against the wall economically, but they choose to follow a neo-fascist Pied Piper rather than understand their condition in such a way that it creates a class solidarity across race and across regions. So I'm going straight into Trump country and try to convince them that their major political foes actually are the 1%, echoes of the Occupy movement. And you know, of course, 3 individuals in the United States have wealth equivalent to the bottom 50% of Americans. That's 160 million. And the top 1% have wealth equivalent to the bottom 90%. So 60% of Americans are struggling every day to survive. And yet it's the richest nation in the history of the world. And yet it's got military expenditures that are more than the next 10 countries combined. It's got 800 military units all around the world for its empire. And there's no way that poor and working people can be empowered given this kind of arrangement of an empire. So that's where the real effort needs to be. The truth-telling on the one hand, the organizing on the other, and then trying to do it in a spirit of love, though, brother. This is the challenge. You know what I mean? That's the real challenge. How do you talk about Israeli-Palestinian situation without trashing Jewish brothers and sisters? I have no time for any anti-Jewish hatred. I only have time for affirming Palestinian dignity and affirming Jewish security, but Jewish security does not go hand in hand with an Israeli occupation. There will never be Jewish security with an Israeli occupation and domination of Palestinians. How do we engage in this in such a way that we get beyond hatred and revenge, but put love and put justice, and most importantly, put the suffering of the least of these? As you know, I'm a revolutionary Christian, so the 25th chapter of Matthew means much to me. What you do to the least of these, the poor, the oppressed, the subjugated, you do unto me. I take that very seriously in terms of a calling.
But you also have...
Man, I'm just saying, right there. Tell me you ain't feel that. Tell me you ain't feel that. Matter of fact, I'm about to put that link up right now. I'm about to put that link up right now so that whenever you get done with this podcast, I want y'all to go and check this out because it definitely needs to be said. It definitely needs to be brought to the attention of everybody because as you can see, there is much that needs to be discussed that we're not discussing. Now you say you want more money. You say you want us to get out of poverty, but first you got to stop feeding the military industrial complex. You got to stop putting soldiers on other people's lands. This way, those lands can actually start thriving for themselves, and then they can start contracting with us freely and willingly giving us their money. And then it comes to us because that's how our money come in. When they go off and they use the military to further investments, the investors get paid. We don't. This is why we stay in the positions that we are. Plain and simple. So with that being said, I hope y'all got something out of it. I'm about to get up out of here. It just needs to be said. Cornel West 2024, or at least do something else. All right, your boy is out of here. Remember, y'all can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can also find Revolutionary Hour on your favorite streaming service. So please go ahead and hit that like, follow, subscribe button. Also hit that that share button. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that TikTok been out. Already, we gone.